Hello and welcome everyone to this interaction session that we have today with Professor Venkatesh Dutta. Um, he was awarded the Bhagirath Prayaas Samman at India Rivers Week 2022. We'll talk about that in a moment. But before that, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about India Rivers Forum, where a lot of this work is hosted. India Rivers Forum has been created to establish a vibrant and active network of organizations and individuals who have dedicated themselves to work for the rejuvenation and restoration of rivers. This process started in 2014-15, where 6 organizations came together to conduct the India Rivers Week events. And the annual events have continued ever since. Because of the pandemic, we've had to shift them online. But we've had these conversations around rivers happening every year. Over the course of time, we've had more friends join us, become part of the consortium that forms India Rivers Forum. I'm just going to read out names of all the organizations that form India Rivers Forum. A3, Bangalore-based A3, IIHS, Indian Institute of Human Settlements, INTAC, which is headquartered in Delhi, Peace Institute, People Science Institute, SANDERB, South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers and People, SOPECOM from Pune, Toxics Link, Veditam, and WWF India. These are the organizations that currently form the consortium of India Rivers Forum. India Rivers Week 2022 was our annual conference, our annual discussion on for the year 2022, where we discussed the theme Rivers as Waterways in India, Bane or Boon. It was a 2-day event. We had 5 different sessions where multiple speakers from across India spoke about the topic of rivers as waterways in India, from a historical perspective, from a contemporary perspective on environmental issues, legal issues, social issues, and also on the idea itself of whether it was even feasible, whether it made sense in the current context, and how do we really study it and make it a publicly inclusive discussion where it's not just some top-down program that is being deployed upon the people of this country and the rivers of India. And we had a very rich discussion. You can go to our website, you can see all the recordings of the discussions that have taken place. As part of our annual event, we have been awarding with awarding individuals as well as organizations who have been working consistently towards the conservation of rivers in India. And Bhagirath Prayaas Samman is an effort to recognize effort itself. It's not always for what outcome has somebody achieved, but the effort itself is very important towards the conservation and protection of our rivers. And the Anupam Mishra Memorial Medal is given to journalists and media persons. We'll talk about this in detail. The Bhagirath Prayaas Samman was constituted in 2014, and the Anupam Mishra Memorial Medal was constituted in 2017. And like I mentioned, the BPS award is given to unsung heroes for their outstanding and sustained efforts towards protection and conservation of rivers. And the Anupam Mishra Memorial Medal is given to celebrate journalists and media professionals who have established an exceptional body of credible work on various aspects of rivers, leading to changes in behavior, public discourse, law, and policy. On the screen is the list of the jury, which comes together every year to decide upon who we can recognize. And who we recognize is then an honor for India Rivers Forum to be able to recognize the work of these incredible people who put so much effort towards the protection of our rivers. I'm going to take you through the awardees who have been given the Bhagirath Prayaas Samman Award over the past many years. Like we mentioned earlier, this started in 2014. Then we had many individuals and organizations being awarded in the year since 2016, 2017, 2018, 19. And then 2020 is when we shifted the program online because of the pandemic, and we've been having online conferences for the past 3 years. And then 2022. In 2022, one award for the Bhagirath Prayaas Samman was awarded to Professor Venkatesh Dutta for the protection and rejuvenation of River Gomti and defending lives and livelihoods of riparian communities. The award towards an organization was given to Scope Kolkata for their dedicated effort to work with local communities and city people to protect the East Kolkata wetlands. We had an interaction session with our awardee Scope Kolkata on 10th March, so that's earlier this month. And that recording, as well as a recording of the interaction with Professor Datta, will be live on our YouTube channel soon. Just a quick recap of the winners from Bhagirath Prayaas Samman over the years. And a visualization of where all our awardees have been till 2021. You can see that we have been attempting to recognize efforts from all across India. And in the year 2022, even more states were included in from where our awardees come. And moving on and mentioning about Anupam Mishra Memorial Medal, which was started in 2017 as at the India Rivers Day conference in Delhi. And then 2020, we shifted to the online model where we have been discussing everything online. Dheeraj Mishra was awarded the Anupam Mishra Memorial Medal in 2022. And we will be in an interaction session with Dheeraj in the coming few weeks. We will make sure to email you with details so that you can register for that session as well and learn about Dheeraj's work too. So that is, in a nutshell, the Bhagirath Prayaas Samman Award, the Anupam Mishra Memorial Medal, as well as India Rivers Forum. This information is some context for you so that you can know more about this effort towards the protection of rivers in India. And we invite you to come and work with us, come and collaborate with us, share your work with us. We will be happy to amplify this to throughout our network. And continuously engage in this idea of rivers. We think that we have some amount of momentum which we have generated through our work over the years, and we would like to share that momentum with you and build a larger movement towards the protection of rivers in India. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to hand over the space to Professor Datta. Welcome, Professor Datta. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, Siddharth. This is really wonderful. I mean, you gave a snapshot of IRF and the awardees, the previous ones, and it's really a privilege to be part of IRF and the entire network of river purists. I call them the river people, river community or river commons, and they are the people who are fighting for the rights of the river commons and defend they are the river voice of the rivers. And I see many of my friends, KJ Joy, Manoj Mishra ji, Rahul, and some of my students are there, PhD student, Kasifa, Dipya, and Farooq from WaterAid. So it's a small community, but they are all hardworking and they know the problems very well and they know the solutions very well. So what they need to do is to bridge this gap of knowing and doing. So there's a big vacuum between policy and practice. So that is what I thought that when I came into academics, I came not to write research paper. This was my first thing that I made it clear that I will join research and I will contribute to look for some strategic intervention where my efforts could result into some positive change. So let me share I have a small presentation and let me share my screen.
Please.
So I'll give a brief presentation on what we do and sorry. So let me. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So basically, I've tried to frame this presentation around the work that we are doing, especially on restoration of rivers and alluvial rivers, smaller rivers, groundwater fed rivers, which are not part of any conservation program, which are outside the massive funding, what some of the big institutions are doing, the large rivers. And we have been trying to say to the different, at different forums that these rivers are very important because they bring a lot of fresh water to the river Ganga. So this is the structure of my presentation, little bit of what we do. And I would try to give some, learnings from the river yatra that we did in 2011, 10 days yatra along the river, and some reflections on groundwater and river, how they are interconnected, what is happening with groundwater fed rivers and streams in the Ganga basin. Restoration philosophy that we have worked out based upon 5 principles, and finally strategic approach of intervention. So I don't know how to hide this panel.
On the right side, there must be 3 dots. If you click on that, in the drop down menu, there will be hide floating video controls.
Hide floating meeting controls, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So how do you define a river? I tried to look for definitions and I read a lot of literature. Basically, a river is composed of unordered wilderness. It's something which is very natural, very pristine, and there are 3 F's and 3 B's. The 3 F's are the river should have free flow, free floods, and a fluvial terrace. I call it the banks or the terrace of the river. And the 3 B's, it should have natural banks, right and left. Like you have the, 2 banks doing different functions, like our 2 arms, but they look same. And we cannot have formula like riverfront, for both left and right bank, the same design. Then bank vegetation and the base flows, very important component of recharge, which is happening from the aquifers. So we forget that river is not merely a channel of water, but it is also the sediment. It is composed of sediments, aquatic life, and the connected fluvial landscape, which are part of the river systems. On both sides, you find mosaic of habitats. You find vegetation, you find wetlands, you find paleo channels, you find ponds. They are part of the riverine ecology. And a river is a major link between land and the ocean systems. It also supports a very rich ecosystem, freshwater ecosystem. A lot of biodiversity is being harbored by these reservoirs, these stock or the flowing stock of fresh water. Now, this is a cross section of a river. You see the main channel here, and most of our work is confined to this main channel. Then we are mistaken, because we don't try to work on riparian forest buffer. We don't try to work on riparian wetlands. We don't try to work on the entire catchments or the fluvial terraces or the floodplains, which are inseparable from the river. Most of our efforts, restoration efforts, are confined to channel. And I call it a muddling through rejuvenation effort, when we are doing all the efforts on river channel, whereas our efforts should be off channel, working on forest buffer, working on vegetation corridors, working on how to make the river banks native, or maybe more pristine, or which is natural. Now, these are the key elements that contribute to the structure and function of a river ecosystem. First is the catchment process, the entire topography, rainfall, land use, land cover. We do a lot of analysis, from satellite picture. Then the flow regime, what sort of, frequency of floods, durations, timing of flows, high flows, very high flows, how the surface and groundwater are interacting. And then habitat, very important component. Different flowing ecology, like how the river flow is making a unique habitat. That is very important. The flow modified habitat, the low flow habitat, the high flow habitat. The habitat is made of mosaic of flow variations. A river has multiple flow characteristics, and accordingly, nature has designed the habitat around the flow incidences. Then you have water quality and sediment chemistry, all DO values, BOD, and heavy metals, and the different salinity components, the nitrates, phosphate, all those things. The analytical water, the physical, the chemical components, and the aquatic and riparian biodiversity. They are connected, both the in-channel and the off-channel biodiversity. Some of the species like turtles, it will need the bank to lay eggs. And the moment you start disturbing the river bank, you lose those sort of, organisms. These are the flow components. We confuse that a river has just one sort of flow. If you go visit any typical urban river component, urban river site, or a built river, what we say, the rivers where we have constructed river fronts and massively, destroyed the river banks, you have only one type of flow majorly, the pool of water. We have lost the variety of flow regimes that is typical of a healthy river, the base flows, which is being contributed by the groundwater. The high flow pulses during the monsoon events, and the peak monsoon, there are overbank flows where the water spills over the banks and inundates the flora and fauna, all the species, and that is required for vegetation, that is required for regeneration of biodiversity, different species. And then subsistence flow, which flows throughout the year, and that is the minimum amount of water that is there in the river, in a typically a perennial river. We also confuse with the, like we consider that the left bank is same as the right bank. Most of our designs, whether you see Sabarmati river front or what they are destroying, the Mula Mutha river in Pune, same design for left bank and right bank. And we are constructing, we are putting bunds on the convex side, where the rivers are depositing, constantly depositing sands, and we are disturbing the corridors of the river by making concrete bunds or the embankments. And we are also destroying the concave bank, the concave bank where there is a site of erosion, and convex there is a site of deposition. And the river would change as it moves, the convex site and the concave site, and depending upon the sedimentation and the erosion, the habitat will be formed. And the nature has been doing it for thousands of years. It's not like in one monsoon you have this sort of deposition and erosion pattern. It has taken thousands of years to develop this sort of periodical sedimentation and erosion cycle of a river. But what we are seeing today, if you want to understand a city, look at its river. A river is a mirror of its catchments. It can provide the image of the city or town it passes through. Now, I give you some example. If you want to understand Delhi, look at Yamuna. If you want to understand Moradabad, go and see Ramganga. If you want to understand what is happening in Lucknow, see Gomti River. If you want to see Ghaziabad, what is happening there, look at Hindon and what we have done to Kali River. The entire catchment, you find all sorts of trash, microplastics and different solid wastes in the river. So what is happening? We are basically improving our economy by massively dehydrating the ecosystem. If I sum it in one statement, we are dehydrating the ecosystem to hydrate our economy. And that is a very short-sighted approach. Most of our tropical rivers, especially the plain-fed rivers, they are reducing, they are losing their flow volumes. And this is maybe due to climate change events, or maybe the periodic flux of water is changing, or over extraction of groundwater. The entire Gangetic groundwater systems, the aquifers, are so depleted that there's a constant depletion of base flows. The flows that is coming from the aquifer to the rivers, there is a massive reduction, and our rivers are getting less and less water. So there is a need for ecosystem management, and it is based upon 5 principles. First, we have to consider rivers as part of our natural heritage. We consider Taj Mahal as heritage. We consider all built heritage, we give it a tag. But have we given any tag of heritage status to any rivers? They have been formed. The fluvial incision had happened, many, I mean, if I give you one example, the fluvial incision of Ganga happened in late Pleistocene, more than almost like it's in millions of years, not even in thousands. So rivers are quite old. The fluvial incision had happened in history, and they are just like a natural heritage. But we can just disturb these ecosystems in 1 or 2 years by a small project or a big project, and heavily concretize the river banks and destroy the entire fluvial corridors. And most of these floodplain ecosystems, they have taken thousands of years to establish the cycles of floods and dry spells. The sedimentation and the erosion, the cycles of, the natural cycles have taken thousands of years. So they are quite old. And as I told you earlier, that they are most productive ecosystems, especially they produce and preserve the freshwater wildlife. We just had International, I think, Forest Day yesterday. And now today is the World Water Day. So they are all, forest and water is connected. If you have forest, you will have water, right? Most of the plain-fed rivers are getting originated from a wetland or a heavily forest area, which is like in Tarai area, we have the marshy Tarai forest, and there are many rivers which are coming from the forest patches. And the groundwater sustains river flows, particularly in dry season, in a very big way. We underestimate the role of groundwater, and I have been personally seeing there is a less and less base flow contribution to these plain-fed rivers, whether it is Chambal, Ken, Betwa, or Gomti river systems. Many of these river systems are getting less and less base flows because there's a massive groundwater exploitation. And finally, the tributaries and the wetlands, they are the lungs and kidneys. They are like they provide fresh water to these river systems. So the smaller rivers and tributaries, if they do not bring fresh water to the main channel of the Ganga river, the river would be devoid of water. The base flow component, even in Ganga river system downstream of Haridwar, is very, very high. Snow melt contribution is less than 20% till it crosses Haridwar. And after Haridwar, the base flow contribution is more, almost like 70 to 80%. So clean rivers and the healthy aquatic life, they symbolize that the ecosystem is functioning well. If you have rivers which are polluted, if you have aquatic systems that are disrupted, that means we are also going to be threatened, and the next mass extinction is already there, and we have entered into the 6th mass extinction. We have also seen that many of these smaller rivers and tributaries of the Ganga river have not been mapped properly. It's really, really strange that there is no demarcation of floodplains. The revenue records, they have underestimated the river's land. I have checked some of the revenue records and their length of rivers. They are highly underestimated. Their actual length is even more. Now we have the drone cameras, we have the satellite pictures, and we know that the actual river length is even sometimes 2 times higher. I have seen some of the smaller rivers, the revenue record says 17 kilometers, but actually when I mapped, it is about 35 kilometers, especially the smaller rivers. The smaller order streams or the smaller order natural systems, drains, they have been encroached with permanent structures, and that is happening that is a big source of problem to these bigger river systems. These smaller river systems were providing a good source of groundwater and also good source of the surface water to the main channel of the major river systems. But this is a picture. We have taken some of the drone shots of Kukrail River. Now we call it Kukrail Nala. It is just like Najafgarh river in Delhi. Now it is Najafgarh drain. Similarly, we have Kukrail river, but now we call it Kukrail drain. And a lot of squatter settlements and many of the flyovers and roads came on its terrace, and the river lost the banks. The edge of the stream was lost. And multiple flow obstructions happened. We created flyovers after flyovers, then metro. So many things came up, and we prepared a restoration plan. But it is becoming very difficult to get this very critical patch of land, the terrace, the fluvial terrace of this small river of a tributary of Gomti River. So coming back to what is our objective, why we are doing this sort of work. Basically, we want to help, we want to improve the water quality, we want to improve the ecology. We also want to see the native, the near, what you call the natural hydrological regime in the river. We want to maintain the flow continuum, that is the obstruction should be removed. And we also want to establish the connectivity of the riparian zones and the stream bed, the vertical connectivity, the lateral connectivity, and the horizontal connectivity, the three connectivity with the river channel. And most importantly, re-establish the very processes that are necessary to support the revitalization of the river systems. Now, what we are doing, we are just doing ad hoc approach. One small stretch we restored, and we say that river is restored. No, again, you go visit after 2-3 years, the same situation is happening. So we are not working on the very natural principles of revitalization. We have to understand what are the processes which are necessary to support the ecosystem within the watershed. So what we are doing is, we have a massive database of, the digital database of all the rivers of UP. There are 8 major river basins in UP, and we have record of even smaller river systems of 5 kilometer length. We have taken 4 kilometer as the benchmark, and we have also identified the critical stretches based upon the aerial pictures and satellite pictures, and also based upon the grounded theory after going to the field and doing the categorization of the critical pockets or the critical stretch of the river streams. And then based upon these stretches, we have identified some actions which are recommended, and these are the nature-based solutions. They do not require a lot of money, they do not require civil structures, they are the nature-based restoration principles. Now, this is where we are working right now. Rapti, Ghagra, and Gomti river basins, the 3 major river basins out of like 8. The UP is massive part of Ganga, the Ganga river basin, the mid Ganga river basin, and we have taken the entire topo sheets from as old as like 1910, the British time records of the streams and the the water bodies. And we have identified 5 components of river restoration. First, we have to enhance the water quality, then improve the flow regimes, then improve the habitat. Then aesthetic appeal we have added for the urban stretch, but this is not really the part of this key components of the restoration activities. The fourth component is improve the vegetation, the riparian vegetation, and then connect water bodies and aquifer. That is very important, because even if you have restored a river, but you have not improved the storage of the groundwater, the river will still be intermittent. These are some of our publications. I will not go into detail, but we have been writing a lot on the scientific part of what is happening with the imperiled river ecosystem, what is happening with the degraded river ecosystems, and how it should behave. But most of our writing is also in the newspapers and the public media, because we think that it is also important to convert the lot of scientific work into a language which is understood by the common people. And we have been writing editorials and stories and a lot of op-eds on how to create water sanctuaries, like the concept of just like national parks and natural reserves. So we should also create water sanctuaries, declare some of the fragile stretch or even the origin point of a river we have said that it should be declared as water sanctuary, and how to make a state water positive with such plans. And we have also started a campaign to bring back wild and scenic rivers. Like we have the Wild and Scenic River Act in in US, and then there's many campaigns are happening that even if there's a small stretch which could be wild and scenic, we could improve the aesthetics and the health of the river system. So coming back to this river yatra, this is a very interesting story I wanted to tell, that we took the river yatra, river journey in 2011, 960 kilometers, and we did not take any funding. And most of our work is not funded by any funders. It is all like some of our students and scholars, and the network of people that we are working with. And we have documented for the first time many tributaries that were not even mentioned in the revenue records. We mapped the entire water bodies that were not there onto these the plan of action. These are some of the pictures of our yatra. This is 2011. So we used to visit almost like 5-6 villages every day, and we used to stay close to the river and talk to the community, try to understand the issues around, and how they could improve the quality of water, the vegetation, and different community engagements. So wherever we went, we stayed. We tried to stay close to the river. We even took bath in the river, and we used to have many meetings. Wherever river was navigable, we used boats, and we also had mobile lab. This is very important to connect science, the community science, like some of the parameters you could easily check with the like DO meter, the TDS, electrical conductivity, and pH. Whereas some other parameters like BOD, you could fix the oxygen and do the biological oxygen demand later in the lab. And we used to share the results instantly with the communities. We also happened to see the base flows. This is a picture, very interesting picture near Sitapur, where these bubbles are actually the groundwater which is coming from the riverbed. Initially, we thought like we had seen Yamuna River, the methane bubbles. So we thought it might be the methane bubble, but when we checked the ground, the water was perfectly, good water quality, and the dissolved oxygen was close to 8 milligram per liter, which is very good. And actually, the huge bubbles of water with a gurgling sound used to come from the riverbed early morning. Like if you want to see the base flow in a pristine river, just be close to the river early morning, and you'll see that these springs, which is coming from the aquifer, which is bringing fresh water to the river. And it was also very surprising to see how, without any rain incidences, the rivers are gaining more and more water as it goes downstream. So it is in Sitapur, and upstream there are many tributaries. We also saw in one of the villages where wonderful, communities they were doing. They were checking constantly any sort of degradation which is happening. Many rituals were linked to the rivers, and this was the this village was awarded by the president as the model village. What you call, there is a term, Unnat Gaon or something, during Abdul Kalam's time. So this village had wonderful, community working with water, and no wastewater, and all organic. And the female, they were custodian of the rivers. So we stayed here, and we actually went to see how they are, how they are interacting with the river systems. This is at Sitapur, and this is at the confluence with the Ganga River near Varanasi. This is again water coming from the base as a base flow due to aquifers, the affluent aquifers. Rivers are affluent here. The river stretch is either affluent or influent. Affluent rivers are those rivers which are getting water from the aquifers, and influent rivers are those rivers which give water to the aquifers. So it is happening like one river could both be affluent and influent depending upon your groundwater conditions. So Gomti River is majorly an affluent river because it gets water from the aquifers. So this also shows how the lateral and vertical connectivity is there with the groundwater. These are some of the pictures I will not go into detail, but some of the media, they had the major cover page story. This is February 14 when we had planned, because we took the yatra in March 27, and then we tried to bring a lot of people, together, retired engineers and the students, religious leaders, and a lot of English media and Hindi media. They made a lot of stories. So wherever we went, we asked whether community is ready to undertake restoration, which are nature based, and who is going to ensure that this is a long-term program, and what are the best strategies, like education and awareness. So again, this is like in Shahjahanpur with Binoba Bhave Ashram people, at Shahjahanpur. This is at Pilibhit. So after we finished this yatra, many of the rivers were at the brink of extinction. They were not even mapped, and these rivers were getting dry. And again, we did post yatra, we did a lot of studies, and we said that 22 tributaries out of 26 are about to become extinct. And that was like we started working, and the government also thought that we should work together. But unfortunately, there's no long termism, there's no sort of hand holding. Like we keep on fighting, we keep on activating the system, but still there's no that sort of willingness to come forward. So I'll just quickly share some of these reports. This is again, major stories. Like we also wrote to the NGT, and we said that the river should be mapped, and the Gomti must get its river bank. And the NGT also ordered the 3 districts, especially the Pilibhit, Shahjahanpur, and Lakhimpur Kheri. The DMs also started mapping, but again, DMs come and go, and again, this has not been taken seriously. Some of the stretches they have done it nicely, they have mapped, but still they have not been able to remove the encroachments. They have not been able to get the lease back in the name of the rivers. The land of the river has been leased to the private leaseholders. So these are the impacts. I will not go into detail, but coming back to what we have learned, basically we have to combine the 2 approaches together. That is the catchment scale work that we are doing. We call it eagle eye view. When we take the satellite pictures where there's a problem, you may identify problems at a wrong place. So you have to do a river yatra, you have to be close to the rivers to take a towards eye view, to have an empowered knowledge production, to work with the community and have a grounded perspective and a problem solving sort of system in place. And these 2 things together, combine together, that is the eagle eye view and the towards eye view, make the ground for evidence-based policy making. So how do you develop policies which are not according to the political ideologies, but which are based on a legitimate approach, which is based upon scientific facts, which is based upon the grounded theory, which is based upon the feministic research, like river as female, and the catchments as again a thing which is being threatened by so many factors. So we have also learned that we are just trying to achieve a very static endpoint. The river systems are dynamic, they are changing, and once we destroy a river bank by a concrete structure, we are not going to get it back. And we are also focusing on a single isolated reach of the river, and we ignore the entire watershed, which is the most appropriate spatial scale. And as I said earlier, that most of our work is focused on only the active channel. We have to divert our attention to off-channel things like upstream, downstream connectivity, the groundwater connectivity, the wetlands, the riparian vegetation, and re-establish the watershed scale connections and processes. That is very important. And still, our efforts are zero in this direction. We are majorly focusing on active channel, and we forget the major component of river rejuvenation. So this is the bird eye view. The Ganga River is this is Banaras, And this is the Ganga town. And which size is bigger and heavier? Of course, this Ganga town, which is just on this, the concave side, and this is the convex side where there's a huge deposition. And this is the towards eye view, Gomti River. When you see a lot of flux of nitrates and phosphates and sewage, they are leading to the growth of aquatic weeds. This is the Gomattal. I'll quickly go through these pictures, the origin of the Gomti River. Then if you further go downstream, this is the situation of the river. River is lost. And it is being fragmented by multiple structures. And this is just 35 kilometers downstream. You could hardly identify the river because the farmers have, doing extensive farming on the riverbed when there is no water. And this is just like almost 20 feet river. This is Gomti River. And when we highlighted this thing, nobody had gone and mapped extensively on this river system. So immediately when we said that river, the land of river has been sold by the Lekpals and Tehsildars, it became a huge story. It became a huge sort of, thing. And the government thought that we are not like we are trying to, be like an activist, but sort of more, like no evidence. But when we gave the evidence, when we said that, look, this is the origin and there is no river, the river is lost, and all it is sold to by the Lekpals during the lease process. So we talked to many district magistrates, like we have seen many 5-6 generations, and we have been trying hard to map the land of the river, do proper zoning. And some of the farmers, like they have also extended and completely blocked the river at the upstream, the fragmented channel, and the dry riverbed at many stretch is happening. The channel encroachment by the farmers, channel encroachment. And this is at origin. Then agriculture in the upper segment, massive, sugar cane and the paddy is happening. Again, the groundwater based. This is in Pilibhit, a lot of tributaries. And we also mapped the in the revenue records, these villages are just on to the river. We have mapped around 10% of the land is available in the name of Gram Samaj, and which has been given to the the farmers or the big landholders. So there are limited fields which are in the name of the Gomti River, unfortunately. So this is the thing in 1978, and then when we did this yatra in 2011. So these are the paleo channels. You'll find a lot of connected paleo channels, oxbow lakes and cut-off meanders. And this is a tributary of Sarayan, of Gomti, called Sarayan River. And I'm here taking some data at the confluence of, this is Sarayan, this is gone, 2 rivers, and this burnt on the convex side, which is the deposits of the river. Even the smaller rivers, they do deposits. And this is at Pilibhit. The river would make a marshy land, just like a typical flooded, wetland within the river system. Very, pristine site. If you see the picture, you'll see that this is river, just like a Tarai River, where you have wetland. This is before Sitapur. Then we made a lot of sub-catchment studies, many smaller catchments. Then coming back to the urban stretch where I am situated, Lucknow, we have really sort of destroyed the river, because the river before riverfront used to even change the directions. Just see 2000 map and 2008 map, how this meandering scars are there, just like the same stretch. But now, after when we started riverfront, we lost these critical, terrace, the fluvial terrace, the paleo channels. Again, this is post riverfront, what we have done now. Now the river width was reduced. This is 2008 and 2016. And there's a massive reduction in river flow. We took data from CWC. It's almost like declining. Almost like I can say at some stretch, there's a decline of 50% from 1978. And the CWC would not like to share this data. And I'm not going to show you the daily data, because we got the daily data, but this is just like the graph based upon the daily discharge data, how there's a massive decline from 1978. And this is partly due to all these things. And the groundwater is very important component of Gomti River and many rivers like Ken and Betwa and even Chambal, where groundwater contributes. This is near the Sai Gomti confluence, a river, smaller river systems. And we tried to connect how groundwater is connected with the surface flow. we took a lot of data, older historical data, how the groundwater is declining from pre-monsoon 2006 to from 1984 onwards. And we have seen that we have lost river flows due to massive decline in the groundwater table. In post-monsoon 84, you see almost like 91% of the catchment had groundwater above 5 meter, but that declined to 52.26%. So, and that leads to the decline in the surface flow. So we have to connect the aquifer connectivity with the river system, especially the plain-fed rivers are very important. These are some of the maps. And this is just in 1 year, how we have lost, a major river. This is upstream, and the river, you could see the same. I have taken this picture from one location, the same river stretch in just 1 year. You could even cross the river. This boy is going to school from crossing this riverbed. So this is in Lucknow stretch. Before riverfront, now we actually filled this flowing path with the clay, which was the artificial soil from somewhere else, and we just blocked the river channel and concretized, heavily concretized in starting from 2015 onwards. So these are some of the pictures, how we have done, like we have literally reducing the width, and this is happening everywhere. We have been saying, from very beginning, like we used to have huge fight with the irrigation department, like why you are destroying. We wrote to NGT, and we also found out that there was no EIA done, and in fact they took they said that EIA is not required. And this is where now there's a selfie point. You have nice ice cream, but at the cost of the critical fluvial ecosystems. These are some of the drone shots we took, the place at the riverfront site. And unfortunately, we have blocked the Kukrel River with a concrete riverfront. Now, nowhere it is happening. You destroy a flowing river. Now you call it Kukrel Nala, and it spills over this concrete riverfront. And many people have lost their lives. Just few days back, somebody drove and the car slipped and just went inside because it's so slippery. Now it leads to a lot of algal growth, and it is quite slippery. If you are just, some of the people, they just cross this channel, this riverfront, and get into the main channel of the river. The same side, I call it planning blunder, and this is happening. So we lost many habitat types. These were the habitat types: open river, deep pools, scour pools, and now there's just one, in the channelized section, just one sort of habitat, that is the deep pool. So we lost many fish species, and now what is happening? Just this green carpet of water hyacinth. So this is what happens when you lose a river bank. When you lose a river bank, you lose the bank storage, you lose the dynamic system of water treatment, which is done by the clay and sand particles on both the sides. And this is just in 2008 when a scientist from Netherlands, Professor Jayakev, he's no more now. He was regarded as father of e-flows. He came to Lucknow, and we thought that this river is so healthy and that we will plan a study on bringing water. But unfortunately, the riverfront development destroyed the fluvial terrace. And recently, some Hindi newspaper, it said that कि गौर से देखने पर समझ आया कि सुंदर हरियाली के नीचे गोमती नदी है. It's just like on the riverfront, both sides concrete. This is the embankment further reduced by the concrete channel. So coming back to interventions, we convince some of the farmers that, look, if you have the terrace free of agriculture, just leave it and let the natural vegetation grow, then you will have a lot of water, and the river would be quite healthy. Some of the farmers cooperated, and they said, okay, whatever land you want to take, just map and earmark, we will not do agriculture. So we were quite successful in convincing farmers in Lakhimpur Kheri and Pilibhit, and naturally the ecosystems came up. The natural in-stream habitat improvement was there, the water quality improved, and the natural vegetations came up. And this is the same, the dry and the wet phase of a river. I will not go into detail. Coming again back to what mistakes we are doing. First, we are doing all restoration efforts with minimal scientific context. Science is taking a back seat. We do quick fix strategies at a reach scale, not at the watershed scale, just a small reach scale, and that to a piecemeal approach. And there are spatial limitations. There are of course the catchments which have become urban, they inhibit restoration efforts, but still river is largely still rural. And if we map the floodplain and the terrace and save the river's bank and the land of the river by proper earmarking, by proper zoning, then we could bring back water. And also there are wide disparities in stakeholder interest. If I talk to people in Lucknow, they unfortunately they like riverfronts because they just take selfie, but they don't see the water quality. You can't even stand there. No, it looks good in pictures, but actually when you go there, you will see that water is so filthy and with the foul odor. So what is ignored? Watershed scale process dynamics, solid conceptual model of river ecosystem, and then river response. Our institutional structure is such that we are unable to do mapping of our efforts. We don't even report failures. Why there is again water hyacinth is coming, why the channel is still devoid of water. So we are busy in just showing the success, but not documenting the failures. And we are also trying to make a typical designer build ecosystem. We convert a natural ecosystem to a very artificial built ecosystem. And we forget that river is a very, very natural living system, and all restoration efforts should take care of this naturalness. And there's also a heavy approach on STPs. You cannot clean river with STP. STP in Lucknow, there are so many STPs. There is a Bharwara STP, which is Asia's largest STP. Then there are Daulatganj STP. Then there are some few more STPs, and total capacity to treat wastewater is around 430 MLD per day. But actually river is still polluted. So there's something wrong with the choice of technology, the scale of technology, and also the way we run the STPs. And riverfront developments are very disastrous to river health. The natural bank of the river should be protected. Give rivers a breathing space, that is protect the fluvial terrace, restore the variable flow regime, that is whatever the different flow types are there, the dry flows, the high flows, you have to respect and restore that flow types. Protect the mosaic of habitats, especially the grasslands and the scrublands and the wetlands on both the sides, and find out what species are native. We are also planting non-native foreign species under the plantation schemes, and that too on the in high flood zones. So that is also not good. Finally, there's an urgent need to protect the lakes, ponds, and paleo channels. We must do physical demarcation of river lands, paleo channels. There's a wetland authority and district magistrate is the chairman, but still I don't know no proper scientific action has been taken to physically demarcate the wetlands. Still, I mean, there are maps made by ISRO, but that is on a very coarse scale. We need to map every water body, every paleo channel, and bring under the conservation program. Many of these smaller rivers are destroyed by the roads and highways, but simply providing a culvert can allow water to move. So when you work with the civil engineers, we also have to convince them that you can have roads and highways, and also have the drainage, protect the drainage, natural water systems. And this is the crux, this is the summary. Respect the Nadi Sanskriti, the culture of river systems. And if you want to understand Nadi Sanskriti, you have to understand the fluvial memory, that is how the water is coming and how the connectivity of river is maintained, how the habitat is being framed and formed by the flow events. And if you respect this fluvial memory, you also respect the river health. You also improve the understanding of the holistic science. And you have to take an ecosystem approach, not just heavy civil engineering of diaphragm walls and interceptor drains and STPs. You have to respect that rivers and river processes, they are dynamic over space and time. Any single intervention can have a huge implication for the downstream. Now the river stretches, many people say that, okay, riverfront is just 8 kilometers. But what would happen if your small portion of intestine is replaced with a plastic intestine? Small intervention can have huge complication on the health of your river. And this is my last slide. After doing this yatra, we had mobile labs, we had satellite pictures, we have GPS. We said that if you want to understand, if you want to improve the river ecosystems, then you have to improve, you have to understand these 5 river culture ecosystem components. That is the Nao, Gaon, Nari, Kachua, and Vat. I call it Sanskriti because there's a whole culture, and that culture is linked with the river ecosystems. Like wherever we saw, there were small boats, there were navigations, and the river was in good health. Wherever we saw, there is a concept of the naturalness, the eco village, and the community there working together. The river was in good health. Wherever we saw the female folks, they were custodian of the water resources. The river was also in good health. And we also did massive biotic mapping. Many turtles of almost like my study table size, we saw at several stretches. We mapped many species of fish, almost like 52 or 55 species of fish in the entire Gomti River. And strangely, the fish would, they don't like to enter the riverfront stretch. They just take a U-turn and go upstream. Even the fish are so sensitive to water quality. And finally, if you have the sacred groups, the vegetations, and the forest cover in the water sets, then you also improve the water flow into river systems. Finally, thank you so much for your time and patience, and also the entire team of the IRF and all the institutions which are part of this network. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Professor Datta. That was extremely profound. A lot of things that you said, I think they stood out so starkly. Some of them so simple yet so important to look at. I'll just try and say a couple of words and then we'll start inviting questions. But I think one thing that is aptly clear from what you've presented is that there is a severe need for a reimagination of both the civil society as well as those who are in government, whether in the executive section or the bureaucracy, which is what might help us tackle some of these challenges, which include, as you said, the river regulation zone and the demarcation of the river floodplains, the connectivities that we usually miss in regards to groundwater and the floodplain, looking at what urbanization and riverfront developments are doing to our rivers and how we are treating just specific sections of rivers, just looking at the main channels, whereas what we should be doing is taking the ridge to valley approach and looking at the larger catchment area of rivers. So fabulous. I think our audience will have a lot of questions. I will let them ask those questions. So if you have a question, can you please raise your hands using the function on Zoom? I'll then invite you to ask your question. Or if you want to type it in the chat box. We have a comment from Brit Singh, which says most of the seasonal rivers have become influent due to lowering of water table, and the flow close to cities is due to sewage being thrown in the river. Any comments?
The rivers have become influent because of massive decline in groundwater. There's a cone of depression on the adjoining aquifers. It is like a huge volumetric loss. We just say that groundwater has declined by so much of meter or centimeter, but when you convert into volumetric loss, like just 1 inch of loss in that catchment means so much of kilometer cube of water. In fact, the largest volumetric loss on Earth is happening in the Ganga plain. You could imagine the volumetric loss, the huge volumetric loss, sometimes almost like 50 kilometer cube per annum. So that much of water we are losing. So just imagine a river which is getting base flows, which is getting water from the aquifer, suddenly finds one fine day that the groundwater has gone down. So the adjoining aquifers, especially in the heavily built concrete, urban stretches, smaller rivers, they are becoming the influent, and they are becoming intermittent, and they are becoming seasonal. We have checked the intermittency index. There's an intermittency index which would tell you that out of 365 days, how many days river was dry. And you just divide the number of days river was dry by 365. And we have seen that the intermittency index have increased massively in the Ganga river basin, which even we don't talk about these days.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from those present? You can just unmute and ask.
Siddharth, can I make a comment? This is Joy.
Yes. Hi, Joy. Please go
Hi,
ahead.
hello, Joy.
Hi, Venkatesh. Lovely listening to you. It was quite inspiring. And I agree completely with you what you said. There are many things one can pick up for discussion. One of the things which I thought is important is your comment about this quick fix solutions, which nowadays has become very fashionable. People come with all type of suggestions of planting trees to protect rivers and various different, which is very like in Maharashtra also seen something called this. It's all sold under the name of river rejuvenation, like this Jala Yukta Shivar program, which was a pet project of the previous chief minister, and now after the present the government has changed and come back, and this fellow has become the deputy chief minister, is again bringing back, which essentially means three things: riverbed deepening, widening, and straightening. And interestingly, such a destructive type of thing, there were critical writings about it, except maybe one or two people who have never stood against this. And most of the NGOs got into the business because a lot of money into it. There's no regulatory system at the village level. Anybody with huge excavators can enter the river and do all these things. And it's really destroying things. So my take is that, even the civil society, which is supposed to be a critical voice, and otherwise we mobilize people around this. But I don't think there was any organized effort in Maharashtra against this. So like the way you build up this whole yatra and other type of things. So what are your learnings from your thinking when these type of things happen? How does the scientific community and the activist groups can come together? Because your thing is very clear, unless the efforts are also scientifically embedded, it won't this. But I don't think that, these things are happening at wherever people like you are there, or for example, I think Sarang is present in this meeting where there is a whole lot of things happening on the riverfront development in Pune itself. But we all seems to be fighting a losing battle very often. So I don't know, how do you inspire people, continue do this? What are the type of lessons you can share with us, to keep this going? Yeah.
I think the same story is happening in Pune, unfortunately, that the whole pain I went through, I was really devastated, when I saw my river, because my stake was lost. I wanted to see my river as, wild and, natural. But like there were just one or two people fighting against the large, the contractors, and even the irrigation department. Actually, they were the executing agency. So we wrote so many articles, and sometimes we had to be upfront and fighting with the government, which we don't like, because we thought that we would be working in the lab and we would be modest. But unfortunately, I have to be just like come out of the lab and shout. I don't like to be an activist, frankly speaking. I don't like to just go and sit on dharna. But unless until there's a critical mass of people protesting, and that critical mass is missing. It was just like crying in the wilderness sort of situation, when you just find nobody coming to back you, like you write an article and next day there's one editorial that Lucknow would become Thames, and big ads, newspapers not writing on the other side. They just write on there would be pathways and commercial and real estate. So one problem is that the academia is not coming forward to help the civil societies. There's a big gap. The civil societies, they work honestly, but they also lack the holistic understanding of the problem. And when you fight with the system, they tell you, okay, give me the solution. That is also a thing that we should be ready with. We should be prepared to provide a solution which is convincing, which brings things together. Like when I said that, okay, we need to make the river banks natural, we don't have to put the diaphragm walls. Then they came with the intercepted drains, concept of intercepted drains, and the whole proposal went around it was a vendor-based sort of proposal. You help the vendors, you help the contractors, you help the middleman, and the river took a back seat. What was missing was the scientific communities coming in large chunk with the civil societies and protest. So I was like lost. I wrote to many people, I wrote to NGT, I wrote to Oversight Committee. Unfortunately, even the PIL was rejected, and the person who filed a PIL, he was fined. This is so disheartening. The same, now they are framing a judicial probe committee. You could have stopped that project in the beginning, but the person who filed, because we cannot go into the court, we help people to file PILs, and we have to also save ourselves. There's so much of life threat. We had to fight upfront. So that critical mass, we have to be together, the voice against these, the river fronts. Now there's a news of river fronts for Yamuna River. The massive clearance of forest, I saw just 2 days back that in Pune, some 5,000 trees are being cut. Why people are not coming forward? So we need to do a lot in this direction. Unfortunately, I have seen the age of Anupam Mishra ji, I have seen the age of Anil Agrawal, even before that, the Save the Trees, what you call the Chipko movement. So we need to again start a massive campaign against these ecological disaster projects.
Right. Thank you, Professor Datta, for that very detailed answer. So I think from what you had said earlier regarding, or how I interpreted your presentation regarding the reimagination of all of us in the public domain, in the governance, the fact that you mentioned regarding being an activist, I guess that's also a reimagination required within the scientific community.
Yes.
An activist is actually something.
That's true. You're right. Many people, like in scientific community, if you are being framed as an activist, then you are looked really down. I mean, we need to publish good, impact factor journals, and just, scratch our, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's like an ivory tower. You make a network of community and just be happy around. So you actually don't try to improve with your findings. You don't work with the community, you don't work with the findings and look for the interventions.
Right. Are there any other questions or comments? I mean, I have many which I could ask, but I'd like to give the chance to our attendees if they have any comments or questions. Manoj, yes, please unmute yourself and add. Sir, you're on mute.
Venkatesh, this was really, namaskar. This was really very, very enlightening. I must compliment you on the understanding that you have developed of the process. That is so encouraging. And you see, the best thing is that this you will be transferring to your students, and they are the future. Forward what you have started. One suggestion, ग्यारह में वो यात्रा किया था, and there are so many wonderful learnings from that. How about repeating that yatra and
Yes.
see the difference? It's just a suggestion, because now it's more than a decade. Second, अभी AR6 आया है, ये climate change IPCC report, which is in many senses it is extremely scary. Now अपना पूरा जो ये रिवर सिस्टम, रिवर इकोसिस्टम्स की जो हम बातें करते हैं, one of the big challenges before academia as well as civil society, how mainstream this entire the manner in which our rivers are being abused in the climate change dialogue, within the climate change arena. Because now everybody is, I'm aware, I know that the governments are still sleeping, but by and large the media at least is now opening up to the threats and how climate change is going to make the bigger difference. And as we understand, it will be water, it will be river systems, which will actually be the part of the adaptation mechanisms. So अगर हम किसी तरीके से इस, because now climate change mitigation तो हम लोगों को भूल जाना चाहिए really, because we have already crossed that that river. अब तो mitigation किस तरीके से हो सके, और उस mitigation challenge में I think rivers have a extremely important role to play. How do you see all this?
Thank you, Manoj ji, for your very motivating words. In fact, you were the one who nominated me for this award, even though I declined, because after getting this award, there is also a sense of guilt, because there's a perception. There is also inner voice which says that I've not been able to actually improve the system. But you have rightly said that the army of students that that's being prepared by my lab, and I've guided around 9 PhD scholars, and most of them have worked on the field documenting some of these things on base flows and e-flows, and how flow is modifying the habitat. So I think there's a new breed of scholars which are more action oriented, which are ready with the data sets, and which is required for doing a systemic change. But at the same time, there is the institutional structure is so rigid, so solid, that it is not helping, it is not accommodating the fresh ideas or even the holistic ideas that is knitted together around the river systems, like water is used, reused, and returned back to the nature. How do you develop the science of rejuvenation? So the system is so in hurry, in so mission mode, in so project mode, funding mode. We just highlight that so much of money has been spent on STPs, so much money has been spent on intercepted drains, that there is no space for such ecological solutions. So we also have to write constantly. I don't know, maybe at the level of IPCC, you have rightly said that if we could synthesize together how rivers are going to be, that resiliency is to be strengthened by the water systems. Resiliency is to be checked by the freshwater ecosystems. Even our carbon stocks, the rivers are also the sediments. They are huge carbon stocks. Nobody's talking about the the carbon storage in the wetlands or the terrestrial, the semi-aquatic terrestrial ecosystems. So we have to also, write with the sense that we could have some room for interventions when it comes to adaptation. Because many of these river systems, our next generation is not going to see any wild and scenic rivers. I travel a lot and I go to upstream Himalayas to even just see a small scenic river just to get charged. If I keep on watching Gomti or Yamuna, I get depressed. So so can we have a climate resilient natural river even in the urban pockets that we are? Can we protect the river banks? Can we have a terrace which is 3 times the natural channel? So we have worked on the formula, and we have also said that this much of minimum channel width and this much of minimum the fluvial width is required, which is like 3 times minimum, 3 times the actual flowing channel of the river. So we are trying to convince. We have been able to create a committee where chief secretary is the chairman, we are the members, but again it becomes to just like a committee. You just attend the meeting and sign the minutes of the meeting, and ultimately it takes years to just move. So I don't know, I'm asking you and all the panel that what could be the best way out, like how should we proceed, how should we work for river commons, work for the fluvial ecology, fluvial ecosystems. Like nobody's talking about the fluvial ecosystems. It's just like terrestrial forest ecosystem when it comes to climate change. So even the rivers which are becoming dry, they are becoming more like a terrestrial ecosystem, right? So you lose a lot of critical fragile areas. So I've not seen the AR6, just it came I think 2 days back, the synthesis report. So I'm going to really read the chapter on water. I'm sure people from India, they have raised their voice, and in the last COP, the flood took the major seat because of floods in Pakistan, and how the floods devastated these communities. So we have to look for all the avenues for making an impact and helping the fluvial ecosystems improve.
Right. Right. Thank you, Professor Datta, for that very detailed answer and the many strings that we have to look at and pull at for moving this forward. RJ Rao, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's nice to, I think perhaps I am first time meeting Venkatesh Dutta ji. We are fortunate to work on river like Chambal from past 40 years. In 1983, we have first time I visited the river, and definitely there are some problems are there, but from the very beginning we worked in a protected area, and every time from our side, we are always seeing the river is in a positive way, and because of this protected nature and that both sides, the ravine and everything is there, and not even no more any big cities there. So the pollution is not much, and the riverfront development of this river by the government is also not there. Except there are 2 major things: is a river, extraction of the water and the agricultural activities on both the sides. So what we were able to see, and every year I think we can able to see the floods in the river. That means the water is coming from the upper stretches. But in fact, I really appreciate the efforts that he is doing on the Gomti River, and there may be some more rivers in this area. I think we could think of giving this type of topics in our Madhya Pradesh side, and Narmada is now a major area in the government, and even the government of India and both the government of Madhya Pradesh are working on the Narmada river structure, and there are a large number of tributaries are there. And I really appreciate the way of approach Venkatesh has taken that gives us a boost up of our universities to take up these works in the Madhya Pradesh side, particularly on the Narmada River. So just I want to say the efforts you have done on this Gomti River, So I able to, when we were working on the crocodiles, and the first time I went to Lucknow and I saw the Comty, and that time recently we went there, a lot of change there. And that type of ecosystem changes, whatever you are taking, showing is really very pathetic. But we are really fortunate to work on a single river like Isambal since 1983 to even today, almost similar type of system, except small human activities there. That is the reason perhaps the river is very pristine, and we can able to say it is the very important river for the crocodiles and turtle conservation. And even today, there is no other river in India and as well as in the world. I have visited different rivers in the world, and a river like Isambal, where on the very first few minutes movement in the river, you can able to see good number of wildlife animals, aquatic particularly. So we have, I think the river like Isambal, I think we should give more importance in future also, that it should be a model river for the entire river and conservation in the country. That's what I want to say. I'm really thankful and happy to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice feedback. Indeed, Chambal is quite, like in a good state, except, like some incidences of sand mining is happening. Like recently I saw pictures of miners, and they were just like doing mining with a machine, which is not permitted. And some, crocodile eggs and turtle eggs were destroyed. So even pristine rivers like Chambal can, get threatened by mining activities. So I agree with you that Chambal is not so disturbed, and we must have rivers like Chambal in all pockets, in every basin where it is more flowing with natural flow, and all intact riparian systems are there. Chambal is a good example. Thank you.
I'll just add that though Chambal does have dams and barrages on it, so that's something to also keep in mind.
Right. Yeah.
Does impact the fluvial regimes in the river. So definitely need to acknowledge that. And the fact that there are multiple, like you said, regarding sand mining, multiple huge sandbanks which used to be host to gharials have vanished. Like square kilometers of area have vanished from the river. So it's not completely pristine, even though it's a protected area. So you have a long way to go before we call it a model system, I guess. Any other questions from friends who are attending the event today? Because I have questions and I'll just ask some of those questions. Archana, yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
So I had a question that, like you mentioned, that STPs and intercepted drains, while they are advertised as the ultimate solution for cleaning the rivers, and you mentioned that they are not the solution. So could you please elaborate a bit more on that? Because whenever we try to tell people that these are not the solutions, often we come across arguments that no, this is the only thing that can help, and that government is taking so many initiatives to build so many STPs, and it is being implemented under the NMCG plan also. So could you please elaborate a bit more that how it's a flawed system in a way?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question. In fact, I didn't focus more on STPs. We have done audits of some large STPs. Lucknow as one of Asia's biggest STP. Some of our students have done their thesis on the audit, like we do performance audit of the STPs, and we checked on the cost of water treatment. It takes around 60 to 70 rupees to treat 1 kiloliter of water, that is 1,000 liter of wastewater, from a large centralized STP where you have to have a massive pumping systems, massive, interceptor drainage systems to bring back water to the main STP. There are feeder service pumping stations. And if you see the pumps, they are sometimes 700, 800 horsepower pumps, 1,000 horsepower pumps, which are running. And when there is no electricity, there are diesel pump sets. And in 1 hour, around 800 liters of diesel is spent on running these pumping stations. So I have done the energy audit of these STPs. They are not the solutions. Large STPs never, because you basically you create a white elephant. And secondly, if something goes wrong, your entire STP becomes defunct. So just to have a battery of interceptor drains and then pumping station, it will not solve the purpose. You have to have a decentralized wastewater system. STP is not having more than 10 MLD capacity. If my city can have 500 parks, why my city cannot have 100 STPs? STPs inside beneath the park. I have seen uh, a modular STP of say 5 MLD, and the wastewater is recirculated back to the parks for even channel to some of the wetlands, and that is working so well. So why can't we have a smaller decentralized sewage treatment plants, and that is more manageable, the energy footprints are less, and the water is reused locally. Once you have a huge volume of million gallons of water suddenly from a centralized STP, you just have to dump into the river systems. And believe me, nobody is going to check, because still the way to check is just now they're installing cameras. They're saying we have installed, cameras. We can see from our rooms whether STPs are working. I say forget, just check the river water. Even though Lucknow is having so much of capacity, but still river is so degraded. So there's something wrong with the scale, something wrong with the technology, something wrong with the conveyance system. And what we have done? We have two diaphragm walls. Then there is an anchoring wall to support that diaphragm wall, and then there is a interceptor drain. That means you have virtually choked the actual fluvial space, the space which was required for the groundwater recharge, with the concrete structure. And when you calculate the formula, they assume fresh water, as if the fresh water is moving from the interceptor drain. You forget that the drain is having sediment, solid waste. It is very difficult to filter out those larger mucks, the bigger particles, and ultimately your interceptor drains get choked in less than 5 to 6 years. So please advocate for, as a designer, as an architect, as a civil engineer, thumb rule: a decentralized wastewater sewage treatment plant, not more than 10 MLD. So if my city is generating, let's say 800 MLD, I can have 80 STPs. Modular, smart STPs. You can just have a nice walking ways, like there's a STP below the park. Use that space. They're just like tunneling you have done. We are good in tunneling. You create a metro train. So maybe by tunneling, you make a modular STP, just like battery of, just give bacteria a good time. Like technology is so simple. You just have to give anaerobic or aerobic, whatever system, enough retention time, and you get methane, you get sludge, and you get good quality water, reclaimed water.
Thank you. I think this comes back to what you had said earlier about we have to look at so many different possibilities and not just get stuck to just one type of thinking,
Right.
which is very important, and also go away from this idea of large, that everything has
Yeah.
to be large, has to be huge,
Hmm.
gigantic for it to make sense, to be able to put money into it. So just one second. Yeah, I have a question before I ask
Right.
other or more questions. I've been pausing with my question for a bit. Today's World Water Day. There's so many campaigns going around saying you can do this, you can do that to conserve water. We had International Day of Action for Rivers about 8 days back. There's lots of talk about action, and today there's also a lot of focus on individual action, where what can you do as an individual? Well, while like you've showed us that the systems that are there are definitely failing us on multiple accounts, not taking into account the broader paradigms that we live in. If you had to suggest to people who are watching this, what are meaningful individual actions that one could take? And what are meaningful ways in which we can work towards collective action on the issue of rivers?
I think this question is very important because when we did this yatra, we termed it as a Gyan Yatra. So understanding the river systems are very important. How do you see things in totality, connections? You know how the wildlife is connected to, let's say, flowing, moving water. When the river gets devoid of water, there's also a wildlife corridor is there. You know, the elephants cross some of the rivers, like if you go to Jim Corbett, the Kosi River and the Ramganga River systems, you see how the wildlife. So unless until you travel along the river, traveling is very important. I always say to my student, just go and check first before even setting the hypothesis to be tested. It's like, you know, reverse engineering. You first go there, understand, stay there, talk to the community, like we do in grounded, like we ask people to be more like a grounded theorist, to go there, understand, come back to the lab, and then start, looking for some of the tests that you want to do it, whether you are a social scientist or an ecologist or a civil engineer. So in your domain, try to work, try to understand the forces of nature, try to understand the resilience, try to understand how the rain is revitalizing the ecosystem. That is very important. When the rain touches the earth, so many things are happening. And this is not being taught in our labs, in our curriculum. Most of our education is, you know, like hardcore engineering centric, or maybe more just like we want to do that, do this and do that, and frame our objectives. So I ask my students to be more open, to be more receptive, and once you have understood, then start writing. Writing is also very important, and writing to the popular media is very important. I could have, you know, like published my reports and papers, keep on publishing in good impact factor journal, but that is required as an academician. But it is also important to write in vernacular language. It is also important to write story, talk to children, go to schools, and, you know, motivate students and the youngsters. So I would tell, first of all, to plan river yatra in your catchment. Wherever you are, please make an yatra before monsoon, after monsoon, and see how the rivers are changing. The small channel becomes like 10 times huge, you know, the channel, the river gets flooded. So be close to the river, understand it, and then come back to the lab and develop that understanding. So understanding is very important. And before you preach, try to first understand. It is very important, like, you know, like to know things, and then be vocal. Like, just don't remain silent, just be vocal, and talk to people and mobilize communities, you know. Like, this is what I can recommend right now.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful, I think, also for a lot of people who are listening, young people who are listening, others who are listening, who are looking for that inspiration. Do we have any other comments or do we have any other questions from those in the audience? I have one question from Brit Singh ji, who talks about that, who says that human intervention is the worst scenario. River Chambal is able to maintain a better posture due to less population on its banks, whereas UP rivers have a population explosion. Would you like to comment on this, Professor Dutta?
That is partly true. You know, the river is not being threatened by multiple stress factors. But it is not that we cannot avoid these threats even in the built environment. So if we restore, or maybe just keep aside the terrace and the bank and the immediate, you know, the what we call T0, T1, and T2 and T3, the three terraces of the river intact, and improve the drainage, respect the drainage, then your river would be in good shape. I have seen in Singapore the ABC project, the Active, Beautiful, and Clean Waters, where they actually dismantled the concrete and they again, brought it back to just like it was before, making it, concretized. So you have to improve the naturalness, the wild, and the intact terrace. That is very important, without any intervention, because we have seen it upper stretch. We just asked the farmer, please don't even grow, please just leave some land aside because you have encroached, and they got so convinced. They said, okay, आप नाप लो कितना आपको चाहिए जमीन, अभी हम छोड़ देते हैं. But unfortunately, that sort of, you know, the continuum is lacking. We have to constantly go and work with them. So that continuum has to be maintained, you know, working with the community. And again, ठीक है, आपने इतना जगह छोड़ा, अब कल देखते हैं इसमें एक पिलर लगाते हैं, ये नदी की जमीन है. तो अगर हम नदी की जमीन को पहले सुरक्षित कर लेते हैं बिना किसी इंटरवेंशन के, तो आधी समस्या अपने आप खत्म हो जाएगी. क्योंकि उसके जो बैंक स्टोरेज हैं, जो नदी अपने आप स्वेल करती है, अपने छुपा के रखती पानी नदी गर्मी में, ताकि गर्मी में काम आए, जो फ्लड के टाइम छुपा लेती है बैंक, जैसे हम लोग बैंक में रखते बैंक स्टोरेज. तो ये सब चीजें चंबल में हो रहा है क्योंकि वहां पे इतने सारे स्ट्रेसर्स नहीं है. लेकिन यहाँ पे ग्राउंड वाटर का इतना एक्सप्लॉयटेशन है और पानी प्लेंटी में है ना. पानी जब तक हमें लगेगा कि बहुत नदियां हैं, गंगा में बहुत पानी है, हमारे भूजल भंडार भरे हुए हैं, तो ये जो ओवर सरप्लस मेंटालिटी है ना, इसको भी हमको बताना होगा कि देयर इज अ लिमिट टू रिसोर्सेज.
Right. Thank you. That's such a important thing where the limit to resources is so important. Like, we're not in an infinite resource world. We are in a limited resource world. But wanted to ask a question that when you spoke to farmers who have, at least in their minds, bought land legally, right? They do not know that they are not supposed to
Right.
buy. They have been offered that land. What are the kind of resistances that come when we ask farmers to give that land back to the river? Like, have you faced stiff resistance? You mentioned that they were convinced eventually, but it might not be easy always for somebody and to give it back.
In fact, we did not find any resistance. Like wherever we went, we said बिनोबा भावे का वो आंदोलन चल रहा है, भूदान यज्ञ, आपको जमीन देना है नदी के लिए. तो they got so convinced कि आप आज नाप लो जी कितना चाहिए. वहां पे जैसे शाहजहांपुर, पीलीभीत में, the big farmers, you know, they do mechanized farming. You'd be surprised to see that kind of, you know, average land holding is quite huge. ठीक है जी, कितना जमीन चाहिए आप नाप लो जी. तो अब हमारे पास नापने का कोई मैकेनिज्म नहीं है ना कि हम पिलर लगा दें. तो हमने थोड़े थोड़े जगह पे we did that and we went to the government, said कि आपको रेप्लिकेट करिए, लोग दे रहे हैं जमीन को. लेकिन जैसे ही हमने गवर्नमेंट को बताया तो डीएम्स कहते थे नहीं, वहां तो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की समस्या हो गई जी, वहां तो कुछ हमने तो कभी ऐसा फेस नहीं किया. तो ये भी चीजें समझने की बात है कि जब हम ट्रांसफर नॉलेज शेयरिंग करते हैं, बेनिफिट शेयरिंग करते हैं, तो उसका इंस्टीट्यूशन कैसा हो, इस पे काम करने की जरूरत है. जब हम कम्युनिटी एज ए उनके साथ काम करते हैं तो बहुत अच्छा संबंध हो जाता है. पर जैसे ही एक फॉर्मल इंस्टीट्यूशंस, सीडीओज, बीडीओज बोलते हैं आपका पट्टा कैंसिल करने आए जी, आपको पट्टा मैंने दे दिया था लीज 80s में, आपको गलती से मिल गई थी, अब आपको हटाना है, तो थोड़ा सा एक निगेटिव माहौल पैदा हो जाता है. और उसको फिर आगे गवर्नमेंट डीएम्स उसको नहीं कर पाए, मतलब पट्टा को कैंसिल नहीं कर पाए, बोले कि वो बंदूकें लेके आ गए. मैंने कहा ऐसा तो नहीं हुआ था हमारे टाइम, तो पता नहीं, या तो हमें बेवकूफ बनाया या, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं था, क्योंकि हम लोगों ने बहुत जगह खाली करा लिए थे और बताया था कि यहाँ पे जो भी घास आए घास को भी उगने दो, जो मूंज वगैरह होते हैं ना, वो वेटिवर वगैरह, उसको भी उगने दो, क्योंकि वो रेफ्यूज साइट्स है. और ऐसा कई जगह हमने करके दिखाया है कि रिवर कितना प्रिस्टीन दिख रहा है, आपका बफर बन गया, आप खेती यहाँ से करिए. लेकिन जैसी गवर्नमेंट कहती है कि नहीं, अब हम आपका नया मापने आए हैं, ये आदेश हुआ है, देखिए इससे करके, वो तो थोड़ा सा डर पैदा हो गया. तो मुझे लगता है कि अब ये काम कम्युनिटी करा सकती है. मतलब आई हैव ए स्ट्रॉन्ग, लाइक अर्लियर आई यूज्ड टू थिंक दैट कि सब काम सरकार ही करेगी, अब तो ये सब नाप में रेवेन्यू का काम है और इतना बड़ा जमीन का काम है. लेकिन मुझे लगता है बहुत सारे ग्रुप अगर मिलके काम करें, लोगों को समझाएं और प्यार से समझाएं कि पानी का काम है, आपके बच्चों को पानी नहीं रहेगा, खेती थोड़ा कम एज में करिए, आपने बिल्कुल जमीन खेत के उसके रिवर के अंदर डाल दिया है, तो लोग समझते हैं. हमारी भाषा कैसी हो, हमारा उनके साथ बात करने का तरीका कैसे हो, इस पे भी सोशल साइंटिस्ट को काम करना होगा. अचानक जाके बता देना डीएम्स को, सीडीएस को, वहां भी गलती होती है हमसे. कि हम बताते कि भाई हाँ ये देखिए 50 गांव नदी में है, फिर वो फोर्स लेके आते हैं। तो ये भी चीज समझने की बहुत केयरफुल रहना पड़ता है कि कैसे करें और क्या तरीका सही हो। मुझे लगता है कि सोशल साइंटिस्ट को बहुत आगे काम करना पड़ेगा, कम्युनिटी रिलेशंस, खासकर जो गवर्नमेंट और कम्युनिटी एक साथ जो रिलेशंस बन के आ रहे हैं।
Right. So not like concrete structures that a civil engineer builds, but more like a fluvial ecosystem where things are fluid and communities can interact with each other.
राइट।
Much like a river itself that we interact with.
अभी क्या हुआ है कि लोगों ने मनरेगा से पूरा खोद दिया जेसीबी से लेके, और जब हमने बताया कि नहीं ऐसे नहीं करना है, बोले नहीं आप 3 साल तक नहीं कर सकते, नहीं तो ऑडिट हो जाएगी, ये हमने कर दिया है। मतलब दे वर्चुअली जब तक आप जाते हैं तब तक एक वो प्रोग्राम होता है कोई, और उनको अवार्ड भी मिल जाता है डीएम्स को कि उन्होंने नदी को रिवाइव कर दिया। लेकिन जब आप फील्ड पे जाते हैं तो बहुत सारा डैमेज हो चुका होता है। जैसे जॉय जी ने बताया कि चैनलाइज कर देते हैं, बिल्कुल एक स्ट्रेट बना दिया और इतना ज्यादा गड्ढा कर दिया। बोले अरे जी इतना खोद दिया कि पानी आ गया उसमें। मैंने कहा अच्छा चलो साइट पे दिखाओ। तो जब इतना खोदोगे पानी तो आ गए, फिर हुआ क्या कि वहां पे पानी जम गया गर्मी में और पूरा एल्गल ग्रोथ हो गया, कि आपने आर्टिफिशियली एक लेक बना दिया नदी के अंदर, स्लोप का ध्यान नहीं दिया। तो बहुत ही सावधानी से करना होता है। वी हैव ट्रेन्ड मेनी सीडीओज वीडियोज की भाई ऐसे करना है। अगर आपको जेसीबी का भी इस्तेमाल करना है तो प्रॉपर टेरेस बनाना होगा, जो उसकी सॉसर शेप्ड होती है, बैंक होते हैं उसके, जो जो एज वेजिटेशन, उनको बचाना, उसको हटाना नहीं है। जैसे सफाई करके बोलते हैं हटा दिया जी, देखो पिक्चर कितना बढ़िया दिख रहा है। तो थोड़ा इन सब चीजों को भी समझाना होगा हमको कि ये सब कुछ अच्छा दिखना नदी के लिए अच्छा नहीं है।
Right, right. Okay. ठीक है, ललन सिंह जी आप कुछ सवाल पूछ रहे हैं, आप कुछ कह रहे थे, आप अभी अनम्यूट पे थे। ललन सिंह जी इज ऑन म्यूट। राव आरजे राव जी आप
थोड़ा सा एक फाइनली थोड़ा सा एक सजेशन देना चाहता हूँ मैं कि परहैप्स बिकॉज ऑफ बिजी इन द यूनिवर्सिटी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में शायद मे भी ट्रैक नहीं कर पाया, बट आई थिंक आई आस्क्ड द रिवर फोरम से एक रिक्वेस्ट है कि विद इन द कंट्री, क्योंकि सब जगह पे देयर आर क्वाइट गुड नंबर ऑफ रिवर्स फ्रॉम जम्मू कश्मीर से लेके नीचे कन्याकुमारी तक। तो कौन कौन लोगों ने रियली रिवर्स पे काम किया है उसका एक अगर पूरे लिस्टिंग ऑफ द पर्सन्स देयर मेजर फील्ड्स लेंगे तो फिर एक दूसरे का शायद हम लोग डुप्लीकेट टाइप ऑफ वर्क भी हम कर सकते हैं कि जब गोमती में काम हुआ है तो द पर्सन स्टेइंग इन तमिलनाडु और सम अदर पर्सन विल गेट सम टाइप ऑफ आइडियाज। तो वो थोड़ा सा एक दूसरे के इंटरेक्शन कर लें, जैसे भी आपने कुछ संस्थाओं के साथ तो एक फोरम बनाया है, तो हम ये चाहते हैं कि शायद बना होगा, नहीं तो बनाने की कोशिश कर लीजिए। फिर तो एक थोड़ा सा सजेशन है कि पीपल वर्किंग ऑन रिवर एंड सिस्टम्स इन द कंट्री बाय स्टेट वाइज, एंड ऑफ कोर्स वो थोड़ा सा धीरे धीरे और बढ़ता जाएगा, बाय सब्जेक्ट वाइज है और सोशल स्टडीज है, बायोलॉजिकल स्टडीज है, रिवर स्टडी, ये सब चीजें अगर मिल जाएंगे तो फिर हम उनको दैट इज वन टाइप ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल, वो कर सकते हो तो आपको कर लीजिए। तो लार्ज नंबर ऑफ पीपल आर देयर टू कंट्रीब्यूट फॉर दिस। मैं थोड़ा सा सजेशन देना चाहता हूँ।
राइट, थैंक यू। जो भगीरथ प्रयास सम्मान अवार्ड है वो इसी डायरेक्शन में हमारा एफर्ट है कि हम ऐसे लोगों को रिकग्नाइज करें जिन्होंने आउटस्टैंडिंग काम किया है, जिनसे हम सीख सकते हैं, जिनसे और भी लोग सीख सकते हैं। हमारे वेबसाइट पे एक डायरेक्टरी भी होती थी, अभी हमने उसको कुछ प्राइवेसी रीजंस की वजह से अनपब्लिश किया है, बट सून वी विल थिंक कि हम कैसे उस डायरेक्टरी को रिपब्लिश कर सकें, जहां पर काफी लोग जो हैं जो रिवर्स पर काम कर रहे हैं अक्रॉस इंडिया, उनके नाम आपको मिल सकें स्टेट वाइज। ओके, okay, I think we have had a very rich, interesting discussion. I will just quickly ask the steering committee members of India Rivers Forum, Joy, Himanshu, Manoj, if they have any final comments or any additional comments to make, then we can have that, or otherwise we can then close today's discussion. Joy?
No, nothing, Siddharth. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Venkat. Hope to see you again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you, everyone. We have recorded this session. Thank you for joining. We will share the recording with you via email with all of those who had attended today's session, registered for today's session. This will be on India Rivers Forum YouTube channel. thank you, Professor Datta, for the
Thank
incredible
you.
work that
Thank
you're
you
doing,
so much.
for the inspiring work that you're doing, helping us think about rivers differently, helping us approach our, change our approach, modify our approach according to the challenges that we have, visibilizing smaller rivers for us, which is so important as we go ahead, that if we don't protect them, our larger rivers will continue to be under threat. So thank you for your constant efforts. Congratulations again for the Bhagirath Prayaas Samman Award. It has been the honor of India Rivers Forum to present this award to you. And we hope that we will continuously be inspired by you and learn from you.
Thank you so much again. I mean, it's my, you know, uh, like I feel at loss of words to even like I didn't assume that I would ever, get nominated, because I don't like to get nominated. And I resisted. In fact, I told that, once you get an award, there's a lot of responsibility. Like people come and expect that, okay, you will change the system, and the system, like we have to avoid this hero worship culture also. Like I was just trying to say, when we make a network and, like waterman or like water champion or water warrior, so there's also a hero worship culture in the field of water, as at least I see. And we have to make a modest army of people uh, who are just like working in the field and more action oriented. So
Interestingly, Venkatesh ji, there are actually blooming number of water men in country now. Everywhere you find, but no water women yet. So-
Yes. That's true, yeah.
The other day I saw somebody's byline, waterman of Odisha, something like that. So there are everywhere this is springing up now. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the gender inclusion question is absolutely essential. Like you also highlighted in your last slide, that it is not one-sided,
Mm.
which men can solve, and it's
Mm.
possible to do that. So unless you have any other additional comments, I think we'll close the session for today. And I'm very thankful for everybody who's taken out the time to come and interact with us today and hear your wonderful story.
Thank you again, Siddharth, and all the steering members of IRF and everybody who has come here.